Are we live? Are we live? Okay. All right, folks. Just checking if you're live. If you can hear me and see me all right, please let me know in chat. There's always a bit of a lag with YouTube, but I'll wait for some chat messages before I start the session. Okay, folks, if you can hear me and see me all right, please let me know in chat. Okay, great. Vishal, thank you for confirming. I believe we should be live by now. I think we are live. Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you, Karashkar, Satabdi, good evening. And thank you for confirming. Yogin, Tariq, great. Lots of familiar names, which is always good. All right. Oh, Harsh, good to see you as well. Audio is a little messy, is it? Okay. Okay, yeah, that keeps happening for some reason. Give me a couple of minutes, I'll fix the audio. How's the audio now, folks? Is it better? The audio, is it better? Can you please tell me in chat? The audio issues.
Did you change the...
Yes. Okay, they're saying it's better. Alright, Yogin says the audio is better. Can other people also confirm if the audio is better? Okay, it seems to be better. Alright. Okay, just give me a minute and we'll get started. Sorry about this, folks. These audio issues need to be fixed. Just give me 1 minute. We don't need this one. Okay, one final confirmation. Please let me know if the audio is fine now. Louder than before. Okay, perfect. Let's get started. Thank you for your patience. Let's get started with the session. So this session, as you know, is VRC Blitzkrieg. Okay, so we at Tuan we run Blitzkrieg sessions on YouTube, right? You must be familiar with the con sessions that happen every Sunday. They've been happening for quite a few weeks now, and we started with VRC Blitzkrieg as well. Okay, so this is the third session that we're doing. What we do in VRC Blitzkrieg is we discuss questions from CAT 21. Okay, so in the last two sessions we discussed the RCs from slot 1. Today we're going to discuss two RCs from slot 2. CAT 21, slot 2. Okay, alright. Now, just a quick introduction if you're seeing me for the first time. My name is Jatin. I am the head of verbal ability at 2IM. I take care of the entire content development and training delivery for the BRC section. Okay? I was in the corporate world before for about 18 plus years, and then I switched to the world of English teaching because I'm very passionate about teaching in the English language. Okay? That's a quick introduction. Let's get started without any further ado. Now, as we said, we're going to discuss slot 2 RCs on knowledge and languages. Now, to make the best use of this session, next time when you attend, read the passages in advance and come prepared for the session, so that we can spend most of the time solving questions. Alright? You'll find the PDF of the passages that we're going to discuss today in the video description. Okay, so you can go to the video description, download the PDF and read the passages. I will give you some time to read the passages, but from next time, try to read the passages in advance to make the best use of this session. Okay? Alright, now before we start, just a quick announcement, especially both for 22 and 23 students actually. We're running a full day geometry workshop this Sunday. Rajesh sir is going to be conducting that workshop. It's a full day workshop from 9:30 to 7, and we're going to cover the entire syllabus of geometry, CAT geometry. Okay? Geometry is a topic which is quite critical. After arithmetic, it's the second most important topic in quant, and many students find that challenging. So if you want, you can register for this workshop. It's at 499. You'll find the registration link in the chat box. And after that, you decide to join a 2IM course, that price will be refunded. Okay? So go for it. You can look it up, check out the link, check out the workshop, the detailed agenda, and you can register for it. Of course, if you're a 2IM student, it's already included in your course. Okay? Alright, let's get started. Okay, now the first passage that we're going to discuss today is about knowledge. Okay, that's the first passage. Go to the video description and open the PDF there and read the passage from the PDF, not from the screen. Okay, so I'll give you about 5 minutes to read this passage. If you've already read it, great. We'll start solving the question soon. If you haven't read it, I'll give you about 5 minutes. Read this passage and then we'll start discussing the passage and then the questions. Okay, make sure to read effectively. I always say that. So basically, don't fuss over the details, extract the main idea. That should be your job. Okay? So read this passage, extract the main idea in your head. You can even type it in chat when you're ready with the main idea, and then we'll start discussing the passage. Go for it, folks. Sandeep, the PDF is in the video description. Just check out the video description, you will see the PDF link there. Okay, folks, keep reading. You have a few more minutes. When you're done reading, just type the main idea in a few sentences in chat. Just extract the main idea. In your own words, in a few sentences, just type that in chat. Okay? Right, folks, can you extract the main idea, please? I believe some of you have finished reading. Extract the main idea in a couple of sentences. Okay, Yogin says he has to go to the gym, so he wants me to start discussing. Alright, Yogin, I can't rush this. Okay, 5 minutes is what I need to give to everyone. So if you can postpone your gym plans, I think that would be good. Or feel free to choose and watch it later. Okay, let's have some main ideas. So Surbi says knowledge of reality depends on one's perception. Okay, all right. Can we have a couple of other main ideas? Can you extract the main idea and let me know in chat? All right. What about you, Harsh? You seem to be done. Can we get a couple more answers, please? All right, folks, should we start discussing? Are you all done? Okay, Mayan says we can't be too sure of the knowledge we have is right or wrong. All right, okay, let's start discussing this, folks. Now, as I said, in the next session, try to read the passages in advance to make the best use of it. Okay? All right. Now, what I'll do is, I will go paragraph by paragraph, extract the main point, and then finally, I will extract the main idea. Okay? Let's start discussing this. What does it say? It has been said that knowledge or the problem of knowledge is the scandal of philosophy. Okay, now it's a philosophy passage. Now, personally, I don't enjoy philosophy. Okay, it's one of my weak areas. But see, this is where effective reading comes into picture. Now, there are a number of effective reading strategies, right? The first one is that you should read whatever is thrown at you, irrespective of the topic. Okay, be an active and aggressive reader. So tell yourself, before beginning the passage, that no matter what the topic, you will read it with a lot of energy, interest, and enthusiasm. Okay, and that is something that I'm going to tell myself because I don't like philosophy for this passage. Alright? Okay, let's start. It has been said that knowledge or the problem of knowledge is the scandal of philosophy. The scandal is philosophy's apparent inability to show how, when, and why we can be sure that we know something or indeed that we know anything. Very interesting actually, think about it. Okay, so the author talks about the scandal of philosophy and then the author explains what the scandal of philosophy is. Right? Apparent inability to show how, when, and why we can be sure that we know something or indeed that we know anything. Let's continue. Philosopher Michael Williams writes, is it possible to obtain knowledge at all? This problem is pressing because there are powerful arguments, some very ancient, for the conclusion that it is not. Now it's obviously it's philosophy, right? So it's some sort of random weird idea. So what this paragraph till now is saying is it's questioning whether it's possible to obtain knowledge. Right? Now obviously it's going to take you a while to understand this, unless you're from a philosophy background. Because we assume that knowledge is something that we acquire on a daily basis. I mean today also we're trying to acquire knowledge. But it's questioning that. The scandal of philosophy is questioning whether it's even possible to obtain knowledge. Okay? Let's continue. Now, that's not. Skepticism is the skeleton in Western rationalism's closet. While it is not clear that the scandal matters to anyone but philosophers, philosophers point out that it should matter to everyone, at least given a certain conception of knowledge. Let's continue. For, they explain, unless we can ground our claims to knowledge as such, which is to say distinguish it from mere opinion, superstition, fantasy, wishful thinking, ideology, illusion or delusion, then the actions we take on the basis of presumed knowledge, boarding an airplane, swallowing a pill, finding someone guilty of a crime, will be irrational and unjustified. Okay, now we're done reading this passage, this paragraph. Okay, it's a pretty long paragraph. Let's try to extract the main point of this paragraph. This is what you should be doing, right? After every paragraph, pause and talk to yourself. What is the main point? If you want, you can even make a quick note. Now, what's the main point in this paragraph? Of course, it talks about the scandal of philosophy. What is the scandal of philosophy? Philosophy's inability to sort of confirm or to tell us whether it's possible to acquire knowledge. And then the author says that this is a question that should matter to everyone. Because if it's not possible to acquire knowledge, then all the actions that we take based on knowledge will become unjustified. Right? We're taking actions based on knowledge, and it gives you those examples. Right? It says boarding an airplane, swallowing a pill. Why do you swallow a pill? Because there is a disease. So that's knowledge. Now, if it's not possible to obtain knowledge, then your actions will become irrational and unjustified. That's the main point of this paragraph. Okay, so extract it in your head and then move on. It will help you to maintain the flow of the passage. Let's move on. Now, that is all quite serious sounding, but so also are the rattlings of the skeleton. That is the skeptic's contention that we cannot be sure that we know anything. At least not if we think of knowledge as something like having a correct mental representation of reality, and not if we think of reality as something like things. Okay, it's a long sentence, let's break it down. So what is it saying? It's talking about the skeptic, right? It mentions skeptic in the first paragraph as well. So what's a skeptic? A skeptic is somebody who doubts something. So here, a skeptic's contention, okay, or a skeptic's argument is that we cannot be sure that we know anything, connected to whether it's possible to obtain knowledge. Because if it's not possible to obtain knowledge, that means we don't know anything. That's what the skeptic is saying. Okay? Alright. Now, what does the skeptic say in detail? Skeptic's contention that we cannot be sure that we know anything, at least not if we think of knowledge as something like having a correct mental representation of reality. If we define knowledge like that, let's say if we define knowledge as having a correct mental representation of reality, then the skeptic says that we cannot be sure that we know it. Why? Because reality as something like things as they are in themselves, independent of our perceptions, ideas or descriptions. So the skeptic is defining reality like this. If you define reality as something like things as they are in themselves, independent of our perceptions, okay? So of course we perceive everything, and then we create a reality based on our perceptions. But let's say if reality is agnostic of our perceptions, then the skeptic says we can't be sure that we know it. Okay, let's continue. For the skeptic will note, since reality under that conception of it is outside our ken, we cannot catch a glimpse of things in themselves around the corner of our own eyes. We cannot form an idea of reality that floats above the process of our conceiving it. If we don't have perception, okay, try to understand this, try to simplify this. What is the skeptic saying? The skeptic is saying that if you remove perceptions of reality, then maybe we don't understand anything. Right? Reality independent of our perceptions is something that we don't understand, because everything for us is based on perceptions. So that's what the author is trying to say. Okay? We have no way to compare our mental representations with things as they are in themselves, and therefore no way to determine whether they are correct or incorrect. We say that knowledge is a mental representation of reality. If we consider reality as independent of our perceptions, then we cannot confirm that our mental representation is correct or not. Right? Think about this. So we are talking about reality here. Okay? It's definitely twisted. Okay? In the passage is twisted, but we'll attempt to understand it. This is reality. Our reality is dependent on perceptions. We perceive something and then we create a mental representation of that, and that constitutes as knowledge. Okay? What the author is saying is, or what the skeptic says here is, if you consider reality as independent of perceptions, right, then how do you know what you're thinking is correct or not? Reality is independent of our perceptions. Then the mental representation that you're creating, you have no way of confirming whether that's correct or incorrect. That's what the author is trying to say. Okay? Alright, let's continue. Thus the skeptic may repeat, rattling loudly, you cannot be sure you know something or anything at all. At least not, he may add, rattling softly before disappearing, if that is the way you conceive knowledge. So again, the author is coming back to that point. That it's not possible, maybe the skeptic says it's not possible to obtain knowledge if you consider reality as independent of perceptions. Okay? Let's continue. There are a number of ways to handle this standard of philosophy. The most common is to ignore it. Okay? That's what the author is saying. Most people outside the academy, and indeed most of us inside it, are unaware of or unperturbed by the philosophical standard of knowledge and go about our lives without too many epistemic anxieties. So the author is saying maybe the way to ignore, the way to handle this situation, and it's a precarious situation, right? Think about it. If let's say you start thinking, oh, is it possible to obtain knowledge? It's sort of like a quite a startling situation. So the author is saying one of the ways to handle this situation is possibly to ignore it, which is what many people do. Let's continue. We hold our beliefs and presumptive knowledges more or less confidently, usually depending on how we apply it. I saw it with my own eyes, I heard it on Fox News, a guy at the office told me. So the source of that information. Okay, based on the source, we say that our knowledge is correct, depending on where we got it from. And how broadly and strenuously they seem to be shared or endorsed by various relevant people, experts and authorities, friends and family members, colleagues and associates. Okay, so we have known this problem. Okay, and then the author says most of the time we are confident of our knowledge. And how are we confident? Based on the source of the information and how widely it has been shared. And shared by who? Let's say if it's been shared by a credible source according to us, then we are confident of that knowledge. Or if it's shared widely, we believe in it. So those are the things. So we are confident of it, this problem doesn't seem to perturb us. And we examine our convictions more or less closely, explain them more or less extensively, and defend them more or less vigorously, usually depending on what seems to be at stake for ourselves and or other people, and what resources are available for reassuring ourselves or making our beliefs credible to others. Look, it's right here on the page, add up the figures yourself, I happen to be a art specialist. So then the author says that we defend this. We say that we have knowledge, we are confident about it, and we often defend it depending on what's at stake for us or for others. Okay? So this paragraph, of course, this paragraph talks about ignoring this scandal of philosophy, and the author says many of us do this already. We're confident of our knowledge based on the source and how widely it is shared, and also we defend it depending what's at stake. Okay? Alright, now see, it's philosophy, right? It definitely goes around in circles. It's very abstract. If you're not used to philosophical material, you would find this complex. So that's why I always say, if you're, let's say for instance, I don't like philosophy, I'm not comfortable with it, I force myself to read it. And that's the way to get better. Okay? So let's extract the main idea here. What is the main idea of this passage? Definitely the passage is talking about the scandal of philosophy. What is the scandal of philosophy? Whether it's possible to acquire knowledge at all. Okay? Is it possible to acquire knowledge? That's the scandal of philosophy. Okay? Then the author here says is that the skeptic, okay, the person who doubts this, if you consider reality as independent of our perceptions, then the skeptic says we have no way to confirm whether our knowledge is correct or not. And then finally, the author ends by saying that a way to handle the situation is to ignore it, and that's what most of us do, right? So we ignore it, we are very confident of the knowledge based on the source and how widely it has been shared. That's also something that the author says, and we also defend it vigorously, depending what's at stake. That's the main idea of this article. Okay, we've extracted it. Some of you gave me some main ideas, right? We were on the right track. So, for instance, if I go through Surbi, right? Surbi says knowledge of reality depends on one's perception. Okay? Alright, so Surbi, I would say that's one point in the paragraph, but that's not the main point. The main point is definitely that question that the skeptic is asking. Is it possible to acquire knowledge? The scandal of philosophy. That's the main point. Okay? Mayank says we cannot be too sure of the knowledge we have is right or wrong. Correct, Mayank. Again, you're on the right track, but it has to be more comprehensive than that. Yash says knowledge can sometimes be questionable. Yes, correct for the passage, but again, the main idea has to be more comprehensive than that. Okay? The main idea is definitely the scandal of philosophy and the skeptic's questioning of that. Okay? Alright. Okay, so it is what it is. It was one of the complex passages that appeared in CAT 21, especially because it was philosophy. Let's go to the questions now. Often what happens is when the passage is complex, the questions turn out to be manageable. Okay, so we can hope that in this case the questions were manageable. Let's see. Alright? Okay. Now, how we're going to solve this question is I'll show you the question and then we'll run a poll on YouTube. Okay? So you can answer the question in the poll itself. Don't type it in chat. Okay, just answer the poll and then we'll discuss. Alright? Okay, so the poll should be up any minute. The question says the author of the passage is most likely to support which one of the following statements. So it's an inference question. Okay? So based on what you've understood from the passage, answer this question, read all the options carefully and answer in the poll. Then we'll discuss it. Okay, folks, the poll will be up in a few seconds. Okay, option 4 is not visible. Am I standing in the way? I think I'm standing in the way. I'll move out of the way. Okay, the poll should be up any minute, and then you can vote in the poll. In the meantime, let me answer a question. Phoenix is asking, sir, for RC practice, can I solve 1990 to 2000 CAT questions? Yes, absolutely. That's fine. See, with CAT, you will find questions on our site. In fact, if you go to our website, you will find question papers from 2017. 2017 to 21, the whole question papers are available. Now, from 2009 to 2017, CAT stopped disclosing the papers. But 2008 and before, you will find them on the internet. Feel free to solve them. Those are good passages for papers. Okay? The poll is up, folks. Please vote. And then I'll move out of the way. Okay, folks, we'll end the poll in 30 seconds. Okay, please vote, and then let's start discussing. All right, I'll end the poll in the next 5 seconds. Please vote. Okay. All right. Now, question. So there is a significant majority here. 68% of you who have chosen option 3. Okay. So this is your first choice. 28% of you have chosen option 2. All right. And then there are few takers for 1 and 4. In fact, no takers for 4. Okay. Let's discuss this question, people. The author of the passage is most likely to support which of the following statements. Now, one thing that I always say is when you have read the passage, before you come to the questions, extract the main idea, just as I did. Okay, let's start answering the questions. 1. The confidence with which we maintain something to be true is usually independent of the source of the alleged truth. Understand this option. The confidence with which we maintain something to be true, that means knowledge, is usually independent of the source of the alleged truth. Now, this is opposite to what the author said in the passage. And we discussed that. In fact, in the second paragraph, I think, when the author was discussing, or third paragraph rather, the problem, ignore it. The author said we're very confident of the knowledge. And how are we confident of the knowledge? Based on the source and how widely it's shared. So it's actually opposite to what the author is saying. So the author is not going to support this. This can't be an answer. It's in the third paragraph. We will go back and check it. Okay? Let's look at number 2, which is the second choice. the actions taken on the basis of presumed knowledge are rational and justifiable if we are confident that the knowledge is widely held. Okay, let's try to understand this option. The actions taken on the basis of presumed knowledge are rational and justifiable if we are confident that the knowledge is widely held. The author in the third paragraph talks about this, right? What happens when we are confident of the knowledge when we are confident that the knowledge is widely held? The author's point is that we're usually confident of our knowledge based on what? Source and how widely it is shared and by whom it is shared. It just makes that confident. Now, this option is linking actions to that. The option is saying actions are rational and justifiable if we are confident that knowledge is widely held. There is no connection like that in the passage. Okay? Think about this. This first part of this option, the actions taken on the basis of presumed knowledge, is something which is spoken about in the first paragraph. Okay? Where does it say that? For they explain, unless we can ground our claims to knowledge as such, okay, blah blah blah, then the actions we take on the basis of presumed knowledge will be irrational and unjustifiable. The author in the first paragraph talks about that, the actions. The author says that they will be irrational and unjustifiable if we cannot prove that we can obtain knowledge. That's what the author is saying in the first paragraph. The third paragraph, right, talks about that we are confident of knowledge based on how widely it is shared. There is no connection between these 2 points in the passage. These are independent points that the author is making. The author doesn't strike a connection between actions and our confidence. So this is not the right answer. It's a tricky one because the option uses words directly from the passage. Okay, but there is no connection that the author establishes between these 2 points. Alright, let's go to the third one, which was your first choice. The scandal of philosophy is that we might not know anything at all about reality if we think of reality as independent of our perceptions, ideas, or descriptions. Yes, beautiful. This is what the author says. Right? And it is connected to the main idea. The main idea is about scandal of philosophy. Right? So the author would be supportive of this. Let's park this. For the skeptic, if we think of reality as independent of our perceptions, ideas, or descriptions, we should aim to know that reality independently too. Okay, think about this. For the skeptic, if we think of reality as independent of our perceptions, ideas, or descriptions, we should aim to know that reality independently too. The skeptic doesn't say that. All the skeptic says is that if reality is independent of our perceptions, then we can't be sure of our knowledge, is what the skeptic is saying. The skeptic doesn't say that we should aim to know that reality independently too. Number one, and is this even possible? This part, is it even possible? If reality is devoid of our perceptions, is it even possible to know reality? Is what the skeptic is questioning. So this is not the answer. The correct answer is definitely 3. Okay, so well done. Most of you got it. So well done on that. But yeah, sort of a tricky question. But if you sort of understand the main idea of this passage, you will be able to answer this question. Although it's not a main idea question, but if you understood the main idea of the scandal of philosophy, you would have been able to answer this question. Okay, let's go to question 2. Alright, have a look at this question. We'll run the poll and we'll discuss it. Go for it, folks. Okay, just give me 1 second. Yeah, the poll is up. Please vote. Alright folks, we'll end the poll in 30 seconds, so please vote. Okay, it should be ending any second. I hope all of you are voting. Alright, okay. Yes, so there is a majority here in this as well. 62% of you have chosen option 2. Okay, and then it's split 12% for the remaining 3 options. Okay, let's look at this. Now it says we cannot catch a glimpse of things in themselves around the corner of our own eyes. We cannot form an idea of reality that floats above the process of our conceiving it. And it's in double quotes. So what does that mean? That is mentioned in the passage. Which one of the following statements best reflects the argument being made in this sentence? Okay, now please understand this is an example of a specific question because it's pertaining to a specific portion in the passage. Now such questions tend to be more manageable than general questions because see, if you understood this part, you would be able to answer this question rather than a general question which pertains to the whole passage. That they seem to be more complicated. Sometimes these specific questions are more manageable, so keep that in mind. But for a specific question, you should always go back to the passage and read this line from the passage. And not only this part, sentences above it, sentences below it. Only then you will understand the complete context then. Don't just stick to this. Okay, go back to the passage, what's above, what's below, you have to reread that, understand it, and then answer the question. Okay, so let's go back to the passage and do that. Where was this line? In the second paragraph? Is that correct? Right, I think it was on the brackets, right? Oh, but yeah. Okay, let's see. So this part. Okay, just give me 1 second. We cannot catch a glimpse of things in themselves around the corner of our own eyes. We cannot form an idea of reality that floats above the processes of our conceiving it. Okay? So let's read the sentences above it and below it and let's try to understand what the sentence means. Okay? For the skeptic will note, since reality under that conception of it is outside the ken, we cannot catch a glimpse of things in themselves around the corner of our own eyes. We cannot form an idea of reality that floats above the processes of our conceiving it. We have no way to compare our mental representations with things as they are in themselves. Okay. Here you should read the lines above this as well because the whole thing is connected. Okay. What was happening in this paragraph? In this paragraph, if you remember, the skeptic said that if you consider knowledge as a mental representation of reality, and if you consider reality as independent of our perceptions, then it's questionable whether we know anything or not. Remember that, okay? It said if reality is independent of our perceptions, then do we even have the correct mental representation of reality? That was the main point in this paragraph. Okay? And specifically this sentence says, we cannot catch a glimpse of things in themselves. So, in themselves means if we consider reality as independent of our perceptions. So then we won't be able to understand reality. Around the corner of our own eyes, we cannot form an idea of reality that floats above the process of our conceiving it. If we don't conceive it, if we don't perceive it, then it's not possible to understand reality. Is what the sentences say. Okay, so understand it in full context and let's try to now solve the question. Okay, what is the first option? Which one of the following statements best reflects the argument being made in the sentence? 1. Our knowledge of reality cannot be merged with our process of conceiving it. Our knowledge of reality cannot be merged with our process of conceiving it. Is that what the sentence is saying? No. It's not talking about merging our knowledge of reality with our process of conceiving it. It's all connected to reality being independent of our perceptions. Okay? So this is not the answer. If the reality of things is independent of our perception, logically we cannot perceive that reality. It's what this sentence is saying, especially in this part. We cannot form an idea of reality that floats above the process of conceiving it. Okay? If the reality is independent of perception, we cannot perceive that reality. This seems to be the right answer. Let's park it. We're parking it because we haven't looked at 3 and 4. If the reality of things is independent of our eyesight, where did eyesight come from? Logically, we cannot perceive our perception. This is twisted. This option is completely absurd. Okay? There is no connection to eyesight. Perception is not connected to eyesight. Okay? And logically, we cannot perceive our perception. It doesn't make sense. This is not the right answer. Our knowledge of reality floats above our subjective perception of it. Now, what this option is doing is, it's trying to trick you. Because here it says, reality that floats above the processes of our conceiving it. What this means is, reality is independent of perception. This is literally taking it and giving you some twisted option which doesn't make any sense at all. So the answer is definitely true. Okay? Alright folks, I hope this is clear. Let's go to the third question. The poll will be up. Have a look at it. This is also a specific question. Okay, so go back, reread it, and answer the question. Alright, the poll is up. Okay, folks, we'll end the poll in 30 seconds. Alright, the poll should be ending any minute. Please vote if you haven't already. Okay, alright, now, yeah, so this question looks like it confused you because there is not a significant majority. So let's discuss it. 45% of you said 4. This was your first option. Okay. Then 27% of you chose 1. Second option or second choice. 22% of you said 2. Okay. And then the final one is 3. Okay. Let's look at this. Now in this question, they have thrown all of the options listed here. It makes the question trickier, right? So sometimes you will get this, all of the above, none of these. So, those questions tend to be more tricky, obviously. And here what they've done is usually all of the above will be the fourth option, they put it in the first option itself. So be conscious of that. Read the questions and options very carefully. Let's discuss it. Again, a specific question. According to the last paragraph of the passage, we hold our beliefs and presumptive knowledge more or less confidently, usually depending on the quote's end, something. Which one of the following most broadly captures what we depend on? Okay, so we're confident about our knowledge. We discussed that, the third paragraph, right? We're confident about our knowledge, and that confidence is coming from where? That confidence is dependent on what? It's dependent on the source, and it's dependent on how widely that knowledge is shared, and by whom. That's what the paragraph said, right? Do you agree? Can you tell me in chat? It says, most of us inside blah blah blah, we hold our beliefs and presumptive knowledge more or less confidently, usually depending on how we acquired them, source, and how broadly and strenuously they seem to be shared or endorsed by various relevant people, experts and authorities, friends and family members, colleagues and associates. So it's dependent on two aspects, isn't it? Keep interacting with me in chat, folks. Otherwise, it's no fun. Okay? Dependent on two aspects: source and how widely it's shared, and by whom. Is that correct? Then, of course, it goes on to say, and we examine our convictions more or less closely, explain them, blah blah blah. But this is a separate point. The dependency ends there on two aspects broadly. Let's go back. Okay. Which one of the following most broadly captures what we depend on? All of the options listed here. Of course, we'll have to park this. We'll come back to it. Number 2. How much of a stake we have in them? What resources there are to support them? This doesn't seem to capture that, right? We just discussed source and how widely it's shared. This doesn't seem to capture it. Doesn't look like the right answer. Let's go to number 3. Dependent on remaining outside the academy, ignoring epistemic anxieties. How is this dependent on remaining outside the academy or ignoring epistemic anxieties? Yes, it is mentioned in the same paragraph, but that's a different point, right? The ignoring part comes in when the author says that how do you address this situation? This whole scandal of philosophy by ignoring it. That's what the author says. And then the author says most of us ignore it, whether we are in the academy or outside the academy. But it's not connected to this part. Those are different points in the same paragraph. Okay? Doesn't look like the right answer. How we come to hold them and how widely they are held in our social circles. Friends, family, colleagues are social circles. How we come to hold them is connected to source. This is what we just discussed. Okay? Now this is not your answer. 3 is not your answer. That means 1 cannot be your answer. Okay? Now we're left with 2 and 4. 2 didn't seem to be the right answer. So the correct answer is 4. Now the problem with this question is, it borrows points, these different options borrows points from the same paragraph. But the paragraph has multiple points. Okay, so don't get confused. The dependent part is on 2 aspects, which is mentioned in 4. Is this clear, folks? Okay, Tony Marshall. That's a YouTube ID, or maybe that's a name, I don't know. Tony says all of the above seems true. No, it's not, Tony, because we just rolled out that remaining outside the academy, ignoring epistemic anxieties doesn't make sense. It's not true. The only option that's true is 4. Is this making sense, folks? Can you tell me in chat? Okay, Harsh says, but the passage states what resources are available for reassuring ourselves or making our beliefs credible to others. What resources are available for reassuring ourselves or making our beliefs credible to others? Okay, I got what you're saying, Harsh. Just give me 1 second. Alright, 1 second. Okay, folks, try to understand this. I understand where this confusion is coming from. There are separate points in this paragraph. Okay, the answer comes from this section here. We are confident about our knowledge, and why are we confident, or what does the confidence depend on? The confidence depends on how we acquired it, source, and how broadly and strenuously they seem to be shared or endorsed in our social circles. That's where the dependent part ends. The next part talks about us defending our knowledge. The first part is about being confident of our knowledge and how are we confident. What is it dependent on? This is defense of our knowledge. Why do we defend our knowledge? Depending on what's at stake. Okay, what seems to be at stake for ourselves and on other people, and on what resources are available for reassuring ourselves. So based on the resources available to us about our knowledge, we defend it. That is defense. Try to understand, this is dependency of the confidence, this is defense of knowledge. These are two separate points. The question is asking you about what does the confidence depend on. So those are only two factors. Okay, this you can't consider for this question, and also this part also you cannot consider. In this question, the answer is here. Please understand. Okay, is this clear? Harsh, is this clear? Clear or not? I need to know. I know there's a lag in chat. But let me get a quick confirmation and then we'll move on. Okay, till Harsh confirms, let's move on, or others. I hope this is clear. Let's move on. Last question for this passage. The author discusses all of the following arguments in the passage except. Now this is a broad question. Okay, because this is what I meant, broad versus specific. Okay, this is a broad question, the argument can come from anywhere in the passage. And this can be inferences also. So solve this question, the poll will be up any minute. Okay, Harsh said it's clear. Good. Thanks for confirming us. Alright, the poll is up. Go for it. Move out of the way. Okay, we'll end the poll in 30 seconds, folks. Please vote. And the poll is up. Okay, it's quite split. Okay, it's a tricky question. Okay, so I'm not surprised if it's split. If you get this wrong, don't beat yourself up about it. Okay, just understand where you went wrong. That's most important. It's a tricky one. I expected this. Very split. 29% of you are saying 2 on 4. Okay, so this is your first choice. This is also your first choice. Equal. 29%. 25% of you are saying 3. Very close. And then finally, you have about 16% of you choosing 1. Okay. Alright, let's understand this question. Option B seems convincing. Okay, Ankit says option B seems convincing. Option 2. Let's see, Ankit. Hopefully you're correct. Okay? Alright. The author discusses all of the following arguments in the passage except. It's a broad question. As I said, broad questions tend to be trickier than specific questions. Now, this is not a rule. Okay? This is just a guideline. You can keep this guideline in mind when you're selecting questions, but this will not always be the case. Okay? Alright. If we cannot distinguish knowledge from opinion or delusion, we will not be able to justify actions. Now remember, before that, I hope you read this. Okay? So the best way to solve these questions if they confuse you is, first read the question without except. The author discusses all of the following arguments in the passage. Okay, now you read except. That means there are 3 arguments that the author discusses in the passage. 1 the author does not discuss. We have to pick the option that the author does not discuss. Right? Okay. If we cannot distinguish knowledge from opinion or delusion, we will not be able to justify our actions. Does the author discuss this? First paragraph. The author says that. Right? In the first paragraph, the author clearly says this one. Our actions will be irrational and unjustifiable. Okay? Unless we can ground our claims to knowledge as such. So the author and distinguish it from mere opinion, superstition, fantasy. Right? So if you are not able to differentiate or distinguish your knowledge from opinion, superstition, fantasy, wishful thinking, blah blah blah, then your action will be irrational and unjustifiable. That's what it's saying. That we will not be able to justify our actions if we can't distinguish knowledge from opinion or delusion. The author says that in the paragraph. The question asks except. This is not the right answer. The best way to deal with skepticism about the veracity of knowledge is to ignore it. This was your top choice. I hope it's correct. Let's see. What does veracity mean? Now, if you don't know this, add this to your vocabulary today. See, the thing with vocabulary is if there is an unfamiliar word in the passage, you can understand it from context. But if the unfamiliar word comes in the option, then it becomes tricky. If you don't know, then it becomes difficult. Right? So, veracity means accuracy, authenticity. So, accuracy of knowledge. Okay? The best way to deal with skepticism about the veracity of knowledge is to ignore it. The author does say that, right? That the way to deal with this is to ignore it. Read the option very carefully. Does the author say it's the best way? Let's look at that. There are a number of ways to handle this situation. The most common is to ignore it. The author says the most common way is to ignore it. The option says best. Are these the same? No. See, this is now the tricky. This is very common in CAT. The passage will have a certain sort of author's opinion. Okay? But the question setter, what the question setter does is, it picks words from the passage. But one word there will change it. The author doesn't say this is the best way. The author says this is the most common way. But the option says best way. That's not the same. And the option tricked you, and Ankit said that it seems convincing. I'll tell you why it seems convincing. Because it borrowed words from the passage. Any option that borrows words from the passage seems convincing. So you have to be very, very careful about these words. Read the option very carefully, and then go back and confirm it. Right? You will know where that information is. You go back and quickly check. Did the author say best? No, the author said most common. That's not the answer. Okay? It's a tricky one. Number 3. Philosophers maintain that scandal of philosophy should be of concern to everyone. Correct? You see that? Sorry. Correct. What am I saying? I'm sorry, folks. Sorry about this. It's except, right? So this is not your answer. This is not your answer because this is mentioned in the passage. This is not mentioned in the passage. This is the correct answer. Yes, you're right. Sorry. You guys are right. So this is not mentioned in the passage. This is the correct answer. Okay? Philosophers maintain that the scandal of philosophy should be of concern to everyone. This is mentioned in the passage. This can't be the answer. Remember, we're looking for except. Skeptics believe that we can never fully know anything if by knowing we mean knowledge of a reality that is independent of the knower. Correct. This is mentioned in the passage. This can't be the answer. The answer is definitely 2. Okay? So 29% of you, and Ankit, you were right. Okay? It is correct. The problem is best. It's not mentioned in the passage, so that's why it's your answer. I hope this is clear. Sorry for the confusion. Alright, let's move on. We'll go to the next passage. Now, before that, just a quick announcement. If you are a CAT 23 student, okay, if you're thinking of giving CAT in 23, we're running a scholarship test this weekend. Okay, it's on Saturday from tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. You can give the scholarship test online. Okay, and you can avail up to 50% discount on our courses based on our scholarship score. This is applicable to 23 courses. Okay, and if you're in Chennai, you can come to our Gopalapuram classroom. Okay, you will see the details there in the chat, and you can give the test offline. Okay, so we're giving away 50% up to 50% discount on our courses, and our discounts will never get bigger than this. Believe me. Okay, so yeah, if you're a 23 student, definitely register for the scholarship. All right, let's move on. We're going to do this one. Open the PDF and read the passage. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Right? I hope if you've read this before, great. I'll give you 5 minutes exactly. Please read the passage and then we'll discuss it. Alright folks, when you're done, please either best would be to just type your main idea in chat, just a few lines. If not, just say done in chat, and then I'll know that I can start discussing once I get a few done. Okay, so just let me know. Okay, I've gotten a few duns. Let's get a couple more duns, and then I'll start discussing. Okay. Again, as I said, next time when you come to this session, right, read the passages in advance. Then you can make the best use of these sessions. Okay, I'm going to wait for a couple more duns, and then I'll get started. Great. Sanskriti has given the main idea. Thank you, Sanskriti. Aditya has given a main idea. Very good, very good. I like this. Folks, you should type the main idea. Yeah, how are you going to build this scale? And the building the skill of extracting main idea is very important. Okay? So just type it. Don't worry about whether it's right or wrong. Sanskriti, let me just quickly read. She talks about how common form of transmission of language is done orally and has no written evidence that they can manage by certain events. Aditya says languages are more about understanding and knowledge which can be protected via globalization. Okay, interesting. Alright, let's start discussing this. Ankit has a main idea as well. I'll come back to your main idea later, Ankit. Let me just quickly discuss this course. Okay? Alright, what does it say? It's about languages. So I loved it. I love the passage. I love languages, obviously. Right? I loved it. I enjoyed it. Right? But irrespective of the topic. We always tell ourselves we're going to read it with a lot of interest, energy, and enthusiasm. Because remember, CAT doesn't care whether you like or don't like the passage. Okay? Alright, let's start. Okay, Anas says I saw this CAT example, horrific. Okay. Alright, hopefully Anas after this it will make sense. Okay. It's easy to forget that most of the world's languages are still transmitted orally with no widely established written form. Okay? While speech communities are increasingly involved in projects to protect their languages in print, on air, and online, orality is fragile and contributes to linguistic vulnerability. Okay. But indigenous languages are about much more than usual words and intriguing grammar. They function as beacons for the transmission of cultural traditions, environmental understandings, and knowledge about medicinal plants, all at risk when elders die and livelihoods are disrupted. What is the main point in this paragraph? It's talking about a threat, a certain threat to languages. Right? It says that speech communities are increasingly involved to protect their languages. But it seems like these languages are getting lost. Okay, in the end it also says their languages are at risk when elders die and livelihoods are disrupted. Okay, so disappearance of languages is what the main point is in the first paragraph. And how that languages are transmitted orally and that contributes to their fragility, like they become fragile, right? They disappear. And also it makes them increasingly vulnerable. So the main point is definitely the vulnerability and fragility and disappearance of languages because they are in oral form. That's the main point. Don't get stuck on details. Let's move on. Both push and pull factors lead to the decline of languages. There you go. It's connected. Okay, that idea is emerging, right? This also spoke about that. Disappearance, decline of languages. Second paragraph continues. Both push and pull factors lead to the decline of languages. Now we don't know what push and pull factors is. Don't get stuck here. Continue. Just extract the main point. Through war, famine, and natural disasters, whole communities can be destroyed, taking the language with them to the grave, such as the indigenous populations of Tasmania who were wiped out by colonists. Okay, so war happens, famine happens, or natural disasters happen, communities disappear, and languages also disappear with them. Okay. More commonly, speakers live on, but abandon their language in favor of another vernacular, a widespread process that linguists refer to as language shift, from which few languages are immune. Okay, what does it say? More commonly, speakers live on, but abandon their language. So speakers are abandoning their language on their own. Okay, one is war, famine, and natural disasters. People die, languages die. Sometimes people live, and they seem to be giving up on languages. Let's understand why. Such trading up and out of a speech form occurs for complex political, cultural, and economic reasons. Sometimes voluntary, okay, for economic and educational reasons, although often amplified by state coercion or neglect. So sometimes people voluntarily give up their languages. Sometimes the government forces them. Okay. Welsh, long stigmatized and disparaged by the British state, has rebounded with vigor. What is the main point here? Okay, it talks about decline of languages and the reasons for decline. The main point here is why are languages declining, or why do languages decline? The paragraph gives you a number of reasons: famine, war, natural disasters, people voluntarily giving up, government coercion, all of that. So this paragraph focuses on reasons. That's the main point. Extract that, move on. Don't get stuck on details. Many speakers of endangered, poorly documented languages have embraced new digital media with excitement. Speakers of endangered, poorly documented languages. Okay. Speakers of previously exclusively oral tongues are turning to the web as a virtual space for languages to live on. Remember, orality of languages make them vulnerable. So these people, to protect their languages, they're turning to the web. Internet technology offers powerful ways for oral traditions and cultural practices to survive, even thrive among increasingly mobile communities. I have watched as videos of traditional wedding ceremonies and songs are recorded on smartphones in London by Nepali migrants, then uploaded to YouTube and watched an hour later by relatives in remote Himalayan villages. What is this? It's an example. Beautiful. When authors give examples, they try to make the point clear. It's good. Okay? So what does this paragraph say? This paragraph talks about how these speakers of endangered languages are turning to the web to protect the languages. Okay? To prevent them from dying. That's the main point. Let's move on. Globalization is regularly and often uncritically pilloried as a major threat to linguistic diversity. Now, pilloried, you don't know what pilloried means. Don't worry about it. Don't get stuck. You can understand pilloried from context. Even if you don't understand, don't get stuck on words. Okay? Globalization is regularly and often uncritically pilloried as a major threat to linguistic diversity. Even if you don't understand pilloried, it's saying that globalization is often positioned as a major threat to linguistic diversity. Right? But in fact, globalization is as much process as it is ideology, certainly when it comes to language. The real forces behind cultural homogenization are unbending beliefs, exchanged through a globalized delivery system, reinforced by the historical monolingualism prevalent in much of the West. So it's basically talking about that globalization is often projected as a threat, okay, to linguistic diversity. But the author says that the real reason is something different. The real reason is monolingualism. Let's continue. Monolingualism, now the author defines that. The condition of being able to speak only one language is regularly accompanied by a deep-seated conviction in the value of that language over all others. English, for example. Across the largest economies that make up the G8, being monolingual is still often the norm, with multilingualism appearing unusual and even somewhat exotic. You can think of an example of America, English, right? The monolingual mindset stands in sharp contrast to the lived reality of most of the world, which throughout its history has been more multilingual than unilingual. Monolingualism, then not globalization, should be our primary concern. Connected to the previous paragraphs, the author says globalization is not the problem, or not the major problem. The major problem is monolingualism. These countries insisting that their language is better than other languages. Okay? Or refusing to sort of incorporate multilingualism. Right? Let's move on. Multilingualism can help us live in a more connected and more interdependent world. By widening access to technology, globalization can support indigenous and scholarly communities engaged in documenting and protecting our shared linguistic heritage. For the last 5,000 years, the rise and fall of languages were intimately tied to the prose, sword, and book. In our digital age, the keyboard, screen, and web will play a decisive role in shaping the future linguistic diversity of our species. So it basically talks about monolingualism being a threat and being a problem, and the author says multilingualism is great, it has its advantages, and then it connects it to the web, right? That the web will play a decisive role in shaping the future linguistic diversity of our species, multilingualism, multiple languages. Okay, so what's the main idea here? Think about it. Of course, the passage is talking about languages, but that's not enough. What are the main points in this passage? The passage definitely talks about decline of languages and disappearance of languages, right? Then it talks about the reasons. Why do languages disappear? And then it gives you different reasons, right? And then the author says that globalization is considered as a threat, whereas in fact monolingualism is the major threat to declining languages and to linguistic diversity. And then the author talks about multilingualism. Okay, so the main points are definitely declining languages, the reasons behind that, and how monolingualism is the major threat and not globalization. Those are the main points. Okay, all right. Now I hope this was clear. Tariq says it's all about the vulnerability of languages against the changes occurring in due time. Absolutely correct, Tariq, but you need to add more to that. Okay. Harsh says languages are at risk due to its unwritten form and it can lose its existence, but nowadays it can be saved and regained with the help of internet era. Very well done, Harsh. Well done. You're almost on the right track. Okay. Let's move on, folks. Let's try to do the questions now. Okay. Number one. From the passage, we can infer that the author is in favor of what? Okay. The poll will be up. You can answer the question there. Yes, the poll is up. I should move out of the way. Okay, we'll end the poll in 30 seconds, folks. Alright, the poll will be ending any minute. Okay, so there's quite a bit of majority, quite a very few votes. Everybody should vote. 75% of you have chosen 4. This is your first option, okay? Followed by 80% on 3, and then few takers for 1 and 2. Let's look at this quickly. For the passage, we can infer that the author is in favor of what? Language shifts across languages. Now, if you go back, you understand that language shift, okay, is when a person moves from their language to another language. Okay, and that happens due to many reasons. The author points that out, right? Sometimes voluntarily, sometimes due to state coercion. The author is not in favor of that. We cannot infer that. Okay, the author in fact talks about how the state, the government forces people to do a language shift. The author is not in favor of that. That's not the answer. Okay? So, is the author in favor of cultural homogenization? Absolutely not. Cultural homogenization, okay, is the problem that the author points out. The author says that globalization is not the issue. The issue is monolingualism. That happens due to cultural homogenization. The author is not in favor of that. An expanded state role in the preservation of languages. Is the author in favor of an expanded state role? Does the author say that government should play a bigger role in preserving languages? No. The author only says that government, in some cases, government puts force or forcefully makes people make a language shift through state coercion. The author is not in favor of the government playing a role in preservation of languages. That's not indicated anywhere. Greater multilingualism, absolutely. If you go back and read the paragraph, the author is clearly in favor of more multilingualism, greater multilingualism. So that's your answer. Okay? Let's move on. Question 2. Go for it. Yeah, Ankit, you're correct. Option 4 seems to be the only option. You're right. Greater word shouldn't be. I get why you're saying it's confusing, but it's not, because the author does talk about more multilingualism. So that's fine. Greater is fine. The second poll will be up. Please answer the question. One second, folks. Please don't type your answer in chat. There's a delay. We'll start the poll. Yeah, sorry about that. We'll start the poll. Just give me 1 minute. Okay. Just give me 1 second, folks. Yeah, it's up. Poll is up. Please answer it. Okay, I'll end the poll in 30 seconds, folks. Please vote. Okay. 68% of you have chosen one. Okay. 26% of you have chosen two, and few takers for 3 and 4. Let's look at this. The author lists all of the following as reasons for the decline or disappearance of a language except. Again, you can read it without except. All of the following as reasons for the decline or disappearance of language. Except. That means 3 reasons are mentioned. One option is not mentioned by the author. You have to pick the option that is not mentioned. Number 1. The focus on only a few languages as a result of widespread internet use. Does the author say that languages are declining or disappearing because of widespread internet use? Absolutely not. The author in fact says that internet is good. People are using the internet to protect their languages. In the last paragraph, the author also says web can play a pivotal role in multilingualism. This is your answer. Okay? Alright. Governments promoting certain languages over others. This is a problem. This is a reason that the author mentions. State coercion. Okay? So this is can't be your answer. People shifting away from their own language to study or work in another language. Language shift happens voluntarily due to educational or financial reasons. Correct. A catastrophic event that entirely eliminates a people and their culture. A natural disaster, a war, famine, these are all catastrophic events. A catastrophe is an event that causes major destruction. The author gives you that example, and the answer is definitely 1. Okay, let's move on. The author mentions the Welsh language to show that. Okay, very specific question, so go back and read that line and try to understand why the author has used the Welsh language. Okay, we'll start the poll now. And folks, if you're if you're finding this live stream useful, only if you're finding it useful, please hit the like button. Okay? It helps us, right? It goes to more people, more students can benefit from it. So definitely please hit the like button if you are enjoying it, and if you are not subscribed to our channel, please subscribe to it. And I'm going to go out and act like a YouTube influencer and ask you to hit the bell icon also. Okay, no, forget it. If you don't want to hit the bell icon, don't. Right? But yeah, like the video and definitely subscribe to our channel. Okay, we post a lot of great content, if I say so myself. Okay, please don't post your answers on chat because we don't want others to get influenced. Just post your answer in use the poll. Okay. All right, I'm going to end the poll in 30 seconds. So please vote. Thank you. Thank you for understanding. All right, ending the poll now. Let's end this. Okay, it's split. We don't have majority, very significant majority. Sorry. 35% of you have chosen 3. This is your first choice. 29% of you have chosen 1. It's very close to each other. 23% of you have chosen 4. And then this is your 4th option. Okay? Alright, the author mentions the Welsh language to show that. This is a tricky question. Definitely a tricky question. Let's go back. Let's try to understand why the author mentioned it. Yeah, it's here, the second paragraph. Now see, if you effectively read the passage, you'll have a mental map of what information is where. So you can use that mental map to go back. Okay? It's in the second paragraph. The author mentions the Welsh language in the second paragraph. Don't just read that line. Read at least a few lines above so that you understand the context. What is the author talking about here? Now, if you clearly remember, I said that. Sorry. What's happening? It's a little annoying. Okay. The author mentions the reasons for decline. Okay? Go here. The author mentions the reasons for decline of languages in this paragraph. Okay? The author says that the war, famine, natural disasters happen which wipe out people. Sometimes people live on, but they voluntarily give up their languages, language shift. Okay? Such trading up and out of a speech form occurs for complex political, cultural, and economic reasons, sometimes voluntary for economic and educational reasons, although often amplified by state coercion or neglect. So the government forces people to shift their languages, okay, or people do it of their own accord. Welsh, long stigmatized and disparaged by the British state. Welsh is the language. Long stigmatized and disparaged by the British state. It's connected to the previous point. The author says state coerces people, forces people to change their languages. And then it gives you an example that Welsh, which was long stigmatized and disparaged by the British state or the government, has rebounded with vigor. What does this mean? The Welsh language, the British government disparaged, stigmatized the Welsh language. They tried to make it disappear, but now it's rebounding with vigor. It's coming back with a vengeance. It's rebounding with a lot of force. That's what the sentence means. So the government-state coercion is quite important. It's mentioned in that context. Okay? Let's go back. The author mentions the Welsh language to show that. Let's try to evaluate this. To show that efforts to integrate Welsh speakers in the English-speaking fold have been fruitless. Is that why the author mentions this? That efforts to integrate Welsh speakers in the English-speaking fold have been fruitless? Fine, I understand that it says that Welsh is rebounding with vigor. Okay, the British government tried to make it disappear. But Welsh is rebounding with vigor. Does that mean that their efforts were fruitless? The efforts of the British government? It's rebounding, okay, it's coming back. But that doesn't mean they were completely fruitless. Number one. And number two, look at the option. Efforts to integrate Welsh speakers in the English-speaking fold. This has a positive connotation. The government wasn't trying to integrate. The British government was employing coercion and make Welsh disappear. So also the connotation is wrong. This makes it sound positive, whereas the author was being negative about it. So there are two aspects as to why this is not the answer. Okay? While often pilloried, globalization can in fact support linguistic revival. Is the author mentioning the Welsh language because of that? Because of saying that okay, globalization can in fact support linguistic revival. It's not connected to this. This point is there in the passage. But the Welsh language example has not been given because of this. Okay? So this is not an answer. Languages can revive even after their speakers have gone through a language shift. Languages can revive. It says Welsh rebounded. Even after their speakers have gone through a language shift. And Welsh did go through a language shift. Why was there a language shift? Because of state coercion. Right? So this seems like the right answer. Let's park it. Vulnerable languages can rebound with state effort. This is completely distorted. Welsh is rebounding in spite of the state trying to make it disappear. The British is not trying to bring back Welsh, or any other government is not responsible for it. That is not mentioned there. They are saying that British was trying to make it disappear, but Welsh is rebounding in spite of that. So this option is completely distorted. The correct answer is number 3. Okay, it's a tricky one. You have to really go and understand the context and then be very, very careful with your option. Okay, alright, let's move on. Last one. Now, before I show you the next last question and before you disappear, okay, couple of quick things. We have a geometry workshop on Sunday. It's a full day workshop. We're going to cover the entire geometry curriculum. Geometry is your second most important topic in quant after arithmetic, and many students find that challenging. Okay, so go ahead and attend that workshop. Rajesh sir is taking that workshop. Full day, theory, tests, CAT questions, everything will be covered. Okay, if you're a 2IM student, of course, it's a part of your course. If you're not, you can register for 499 and you can access the geometry workshop, live workshop on Zoom on Saturday. The registration link is in the chat, go for it. If you're a 23 student, we are having a scholarship test tomorrow, Sunday and Monday online. You can give that and based on your score, get up to a 50% discount. And if you're in Chennai, come and give the test offline in our classroom at Gopal. Okay? Both the links are there. Do consider it. Let's go to the last question. We'll run the poll. You can attend. Alright, I'll end the poll in 30 seconds, folks. Please go ahead and vote. Okay. Wow, this is an overwhelming majority here. 78% of you have chosen 1. Okay. And 14% of you have chosen 4. And there are a few takers for the remaining options. Let's see. We can infer all of the following about indigenous languages from the passage except that. So again, we can infer all of the following except that means 1 we cannot infer. We have to pick that option. Indigenous languages. Okay? Their vocabulary and grammatical constructs have been challenging to document. The passage does talk about vocabulary and grammatical constructs in the first paragraph. Okay? But it says, but indigenous languages are about much more than unusual words and intricate grammar. Right? They say it's not just about grammar and unusual words. They're very useful because they're beacons for transmission of cultural traditions and other things. So it's not just about unusual words and grammar. Okay? But does it say that their vocabulary and grammatical constructs have been challenging to document? No. You cannot infer that. Let's park this. Their repositories of traditional knowledge about the environment and culture. We just read that. This can't be an answer. Remember, it's except. People are increasingly working on documenting these languages. It says that in the first paragraph itself. They are in danger of being wiped out as most can only be transmitted orally. First paragraph. Oral languages are in the danger of being wiped out. The correct answer is definitely 1. Well done. This was a manageable question. Okay? Alright, well done on this. So that's it, folks. That's it for this session. Now we're going to meet every Friday. Okay, this VRC Blitzkrieg will happen every Friday from 6 to 8. Same time. So next week we will do the remaining 2 RCs of slot 2. Then we will do slot 3 RCs. Once we are done with RCs, we will do BA of slot 1, BA of slot 2, BA of slot 3. Okay? Every week, Friday, same time from 6 to 8. So I'll see you folks. Don't forget to like if you find this video useful and subscribe to our channel. Alright? Awesome. Enjoy your Friday evening, enjoy your weekend, and I will see you next Friday video. Alright?